Hello and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, your largest platform for anything to do with the entrepreneurial world. I'm Sunanda Jayaseelan. Tonight, we're bringing you a slice of a panel discussion that we did in Kolkata, which is part of a series of roadshows that we call the Leaders of Tomorrow Town Hall, essentially traveling to the length and breadth of the country to connect directly with entrepreneurs like yourself. On this panel discussion, I've spoken about skilling of India's entrepreneurs in the new normal. What's that going to look like? What are the new skill sets? How are businesses and entrepreneurs preparing themselves for this new normal? All of that on tonight's panel.
Another data point that I would like to quote you, Raghav, is that it's estimated that 9% of Indians by 2022 will be in jobs which don't exist today. So if you are training and preparing for something that doesn't even exist today, where do you start?
Even if you're a small business, you have to design your business to scale. And how does one scale in today's day and age? It is through learning these specific technology courses that can help you in your day-to-day business.
A very important point has been raised about improving skill sets, and I want to talk reskilling. We've largely been talking about junior employees and entry-level employees, but I also want to talk about senior executives. Research done previously has shown that nearly 87% of mid to senior level executives in companies are saying they don't understand the pace at which technology is changing. So if you're someone who's leading a company, how are you then in a position to take those decisions to incorporate more and more technology into your businesses? What would perhaps your advice be? I know you were speaking about Coursera, Raghav, but if you are leading any size of company, how do you perhaps ensure that you're staying on top of all these changes so that your employees then can be brought up to speed?
So I think one of the most relevant things to do is read magazines like McKinsey, Harvard Business Review, etc., which give you a lot of case studies as to what's happening globally. Go to events such as these, network with people who are into technology, because whether you like it or no, at any level, you will need the same skill sets. Maybe the applications will be different, but you will still need to learn artificial intelligence. You will still need to learn robotics. Because if you see, we have invested in a company in Singapore called BotSync, which is industrial robotics. So what Miftaur mentioned about factories becoming less and the head count becoming lower. So every manager, executive, CEO of any scale of business has to be aware of what's going on through these publications and events, because in India you have to do a hybrid model. So what is BotSync? So we are trying to get BotSync into India with large companies as well as medium companies. So what we are saying is that the worker at the shop floor will understand the technology of BotSync, and he will be an enabler to that robot. Whereas in a market like Japan, you don't need that tech enabler. It is fully automated. So in India, when we talk about technology, we talk about a hybrid version. And I think if you are designed to scale, which I think was one point I mentioned in the initial talk, is that managers and CEOs need to learn how to design to scale their business. You cannot be limited to a micro environment, because somebody will eat you up. Whether today, tomorrow, day after, right? So how do you ensure sustainability? So the only way you can do that is by being aware of what is happening, being on top of the learning curve, and having a hybrid model.
In fact, since the word global came up, I just want to know any global best practices that we perhaps can learn from, anything that this panel wants to bring up, maybe to you first, Raghav.
So I think one thing we need to learn from an environment like Silicon Valley is that you need to pay it forward. Each one of us in this room have to help each other, whether you're an entrepreneur or an angel investor or a startup, to help each other create this whole ecosystem. It's called pay it forward. And you might not get the return immediately. You might get the return 10 years, 20 years down the line, but that will help create this whole entrepreneurial ecosystem. So that is one skill we need to develop.
Yeah, I can add one more thing. We work with European Union incubators as well, those incubators are supporting startups in Europe and US. So one big learning from them, they have a concept called molecular businesses or molecular startups. a molecule consists of multiple atoms, right? But they work as a unit. So what it means that they are promoting that as a business, don't try to do everything, okay? And this is probably a mistake that, we see that many of the SMEs want to do or try to do, that you want to do the entire value chain, right? So what they are doing is they are identifying innovators from the entire value chain pieces, and they are facilitating creation of that molecule. Means it's a closely bonded, tightly bonded group of small businesses which can even take up a big giant. The advantage is that they are flexible, and all the challenges that you face as a small individual, you can overcome by collaborating. I think collaborating is something which I've learned from the...
Sure.
Yeah. Just sure. On this, the thing is, it's called, which we don't see in India, it's called sweating the asset better. So what it means is that the stock or the asset that you have, you kind of share it with others. Example, people outside in US, they don't take offices. They completely work out of a co-share. Co-share means a shared working place where you just take 2 desks and operate out of there and pay a monthly rent. Your housekeeping, your security, everything gets taken care of. They don't have support function departments. So they don't have an accounts department, they don't have an HR department, they don't have those admin departments, etc. So all that cost is not there. And I'm not talking about a one-room startup. I'm talking about even senior businesses. They are very clear in their approach that I am into production of masks. So I will only have this production place, rest everything I will outsource. Of course, the infra is a lot better. There are very reputed agencies to handle your HR, finance, accounts, etc., etc. But sharing and not investing in every department and investing only in places where it really matters is something which they really do.
Okay. Since we were talking about the global, learnings that we can take from what's happening globally, I also want to talk about where we are. What learnings can entrepreneurs who are going to be watching this on television take away from entrepreneurs who are based here in Kolkata, in the Northeast? What would you perhaps like to leave our audience with? Maybe first.
So, to be honest, post-COVID, if I'll use this word, dhanda change ho gaya. So the business which was making sense pre-COVID does not make sense right now. So what we really need to understand is what is the different unit economics. And what is unit economics? Unit economics is for your particular product, आपका ये सेल प्राइस है, आपका ये कॉस्ट है, आपका ये मार्केटिंग है, आपका ये लेबर है, आपका ये इलेक्ट्रिसिटी है. This is what you are saving, and this is multiplied by the number of units you produce or you sell. You will come at your annual this thing. Now this component of cost has really changed. How has it changed? Your prices of raw materials have gone up. Your labor has become this thing. Your marketing spend has increased. Your digital aspects has increased. So as an entrepreneur, as people who own and lead businesses, you really need to rethink कि ये अभी है plus, and no one will be able to tell you कि what will this be in a year from now, and try to kind of either cut down on cost or increase your this thing or do something different for you to stay relevant in the current business. Because like sir was mentioning, it's survival of the fittest. Because if you do not rethink this through in terms of your cost, in terms of your scale, you would not survive for long.
Sure. So Raghav, to the question on specific skill sets that perhaps entrepreneurs here in Kolkata, in the east of India have, that perhaps the rest of the country can learn from, what would you want to say?
Well, I think here people are more loyal to each other. They don't leave the company so fast. So I think that is something we can learn. People in Bangalore, I don't know if it's right to say this, but maybe people in Bangalore, Delhi, Mumbai have more opportunity to move across. So I think loyalty is a good factor here.
Sure. I'm going to, in fact, take questions from the audience at this point. If any of you have any questions, please do raise your hands. Yes, to this lady here.
My name is Shruti Kasat. My business is called the Sari Sneakers. We make hand-embroidered sneakers. And as you said, I'm a smaller business where I work on collaboration basis for most of it, as it's easier for us to manage. But after I'm listening to you, sir, I wanted to know how we can connect to more like rural places, or how we can get them in this collaborative business format. Because embroidery being very, like, a lot of rural places are connected to this craft. But there is no way of finding that collaboration or bridging the gap, as you call it. So I wanted to know what is the sort of solution that you could think could be helpful for us?
Excellent question. Maybe this is a time that I also promote what we do a little bit. Anyway, so, you know, there are new entities called incubators which came up, okay? You know about incubators? Incubators they incubate startups like babies, okay? So they help the startup to take their idea to the next level, to launch their business and then, you know, be sustainable, help them raise funds and all. So these incubators, they have a large number of startups whom they are mentoring, they are supporting. Now, each of these startups are entities who are doing something good and innovative, because that is by definition startup is, right? So it's a wonderful opportunity that you please get connected to an incubator which has a large number of startups, and you will find some startups with whom who will give you that supply chain. In fact, please reach out to me later on, and we can give you access not only to Bengal, but also to the entire Northeast who can help you with the embroidery.
That's
example.
networking skills right there.
Yeah. A small example, you've heard of this company called Fab India. Yeah? 95% of production of Fab India comes from villages where there is no electricity also. And that is the beauty about that company, is they completely produce in villages of UP, Bihar, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, right? And they get, and the cost of production, you would know, it would be absolutely this thing. And they transport that and sell in your Phoenixes and your Orionses and your Quest malls of the world. So that is the delta which we are talking about.
I'm going to take a quick break. Back in just a moment. Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow Town Hall tonight, bringing you highlights of a panel discussion from Kolkata.
There are two challenges, basically in rural and even in urban, for the entrepreneurs. I am basically a faculty of MSME, and I go to very far rural areas. Those two areas are identifying self-potential. They have the potential, but they don't identify or realize. And second is mapping their resources to the market. How are you going to help them out? Because these are the pertinent challenges or hurdles, I will say, existing for bringing them up, which I have personally faced.
See, my observation is that there are multiple government departments which are focusing on this segment, right? Like MSME, then you have the Rural Livelihood Mission, right? But unfortunately, my observation is that these departments are also working in silos, right? One department doesn't want to collaborate with the other department, and this is a fact. And that is exactly the reason where, in spite of having some wonderful projects, supply side is created, but the demand side is not created. Somebody is creating the demand side, the other guy is not creating the supply side. So I think one solution can be, if there can be a integration of these schemes, because for the entrepreneur, they want to get the complete solution, not pieces. That would be my...
Sure. Maybe one last question related specifically to skilling.
Myself, Amit Haldar from Tata Consultancy Services. I look after the cloud COE, cloud and digital. So why I come here? Because I love that what is happening around. And one very important question is that when we are talking about this reskilling, it is very relevant today. In same line, another very important question is that how we are going to retain that. Because if one small enterprise, they are focusing on reskilling and grooming up with the latest skill, immediately they will be facing challenge, they will be picked by other enterprises. So if there is not a concerted effort, within the network that you all are mentioning. It is an extremely difficult thing. So what would be your suggestion?
I can just use a quote, okay? I love this quote actually on this, that it's a challenge, right? I skill people and then somebody poaches my resources, right? So somebody asked the same question to Walt Disney. And you know that Walt Disney spends huge amount of money on skilling. They said, why do you spend so much money and skill people, and then other similar companies, competitors will take it from you? They are waiting for people to be skilled by you. He said, what if I don't skill them and they stay? Just think about it. Now, choice is yours.
So I'll give you a different take. One is, whether you're a small company or a large company, and you're a large company, but in small companies, all the more important is skilling, because you have a small shareholder base. So I think it's very important to incentivize your management that you are skilling them for them in order to stay in the company. That should be made very clear at the outset. And you need to give them ownership, right? So what I have seen in startups is that you give incentive structures or shares or ESOP to the employee you're skilling, and you vest it over a period of 2-3 years, so that those 2-3 years at least the employee doesn't leave.
I also want to discuss, I'm sure all of us have seen the news. TCS has announced that a certain percentage of its employee base are going to work permanently from home. Now, as organizations are enabling that, I want to talk about the emotional and the mental cost, if I can call it that. You started today, for instance, by saying it feels good to be meeting face-to-face after a gap of almost 2 years. And as more and more companies are perhaps working to a tech-enabled and a digital-enabled workplace, it is perhaps coming at some sort of cost. How should entrepreneurs, how should employees, how are businesses like yours perhaps addressing that? Anything that this panel wants to discuss?
So for us, 90% of people cannot work from home, because if you don't run that restaurant, you will not be able to this thing. So for us, 90% of the folks who are there either producing or who are selling, even if you order through Swiggy or Zomato, the guy at the store will have to make it, right? So work from home for 90% labor is not there. For the 10%, work from home is possible for the managerial category, which are not standing at the counter and this thing. If you as a business need to allow work from home, you need to have work monitoring techniques. What is meant by work monitoring technique is you will not be able to physically see, and I'm only talking as an employer, you will not be able to physically see what the person is doing. So you really need to have those KRA, KPIs and tasks, which can be divided into day and week, mapped, that this is your deliverable. Because in office, people would sit in front of the desktops and kind of do the work, and even if the work was not done, the manager would be okay, he was sitting 10 hours in office, 9 hours in office, he would have done something irrespective of the capability or the skill set. But if you're remotely working, then you really need to have those HR aspects in mind. Okay, this is your deliverable on day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and day 5, and a mechanism which will actually measure their performance rather than waiting towards the year end and then telling the guy that you didn't do anything, you wasted time.
Okay.
I can give one example. I was talking to one entrepreneur who runs an IT shop. I think he has around 100 employees. Just last week, so he was very worried. I said, what happened? You are doing good business. But yes, I have good business. I have huge business. But I'm losing some key employees who were there with me for the last 8 years, 10 years. But suddenly, during this pandemic, they resigned. But then where are they going? So you know what? It opened up a new space. Earlier, employees were staying with me because they didn't want to leave Kolkata. Okay? But now that is not a requirement. Now companies from Bangalore, Pune, they are hiring people from Kolkata because taking advantage of the work from home. So there is a risk which some entrepreneurs are facing like this. I said you can even use it as an opportunity. Now you can get people from other location who would be like to. So it has actually opened up the entire employment space. So there is no boundary now, no restriction in terms of where you are based.
Sure. Let me then take closing comments, and I started my opening comments from the sets. Let me take closing comments and ask you perhaps one skill set that you learned personally during the pandemic, and any learnings that you want to, or any advice that you really want to leave tonight's audience with.
One skill set that I learned, I think that is managing emotions, because at home, when you say that 9:30 to 5:30, don't disturb me, nobody takes me seriously. Okay? So I think my emotional intelligence level is much higher as compared to others, because again, the same thing was faced by my colleagues as well. So counseling each other, getting our emotional quotient or EQ or EI, whatever it is, that is definitely a new learning for us.
I think on the software aspect, I agree with Subhrangshu, is that what I learned in the pandemic is to keep your mental health really up there, because staying at home can really get to you because you're day in and day out, in the house. And I think even Virat Kohli came out with this statement saying that even cricketers were in this bubble, right? And this bubble really gets to you. So how do you keep yourself mentally healthy is one of the most important things that I learned in this pandemic.
I just learned one thing. This hand, all is well. So that is just continuing on jokes apart. So you just need to have your balance straight. Even if your revenues are going out of the window and your costs are streaming up, you just need to have that thing that, okay, we will be able to survive. And if you have that mental balance that, yes, I will be able to see light at the end of the tunnel, I think the journey will be, because you have to go through that, the journey will be just a lot easier.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for this very engaging and entertaining panel discussion. A huge round of applause to our panelists.
Completely out of time on tonight's panel discussion. If you want to know which is the last city that we're heading to on this Leaders of Tomorrow roadshow, well, that information is on our website. For tonight, it's a wrap. Do stay tuned. There's much more coming up.